that's the beauty of recognizing when to let go and the result that you can get at the end of it. You can look back and be like, wow, look what I did. Look what I achieved. Welcome to the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we unwrap the joys and struggles of working in the food industry so you can thrive in what you do best while sustaining a rewarding and fulfilling career or business. We are your hosts, Lucy Wager, food industry consultant,
and Amy Wilkinson, food industry coach. We've worked in the food industry for the last 20 years and we're here to share with you the benefit of our hindsight. Our podcast is for you to find new ways to cope with the daily struggles, but mostly to inspire you to work on what's not working to ultimately improve your career or business long term.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of O for Food's Sake. This feels very strange because that's the last time I'm ever going to say that.
Either of us is ever going to say it.
Yeah. So this is our last ever recording of O for Food's Sake after 4 years, well, over 4 years now.
Yeah.
And what an incredible journey it's been.
It has.
And we decided we would do an episode about letting go. Let it go, let it go. And talking about that it's okay to let go and recognise when you need to move on from something.
Yeah. And when things are no longer serving you.
Yeah.
And actually, both of us, this is one example of it. And I'll just say for listeners, don't go anywhere because we'll be coming back. It just won't be called O for Food's Sake anymore. So don't unsubscribe. Just get that in there.
Yeah.
But both of us, yes, we're letting go of O for Food's Sake now, but there's been lots and lots of examples throughout our lives and careers where actually letting go has been the best thing that we could do and to move on. And I think as humans, it's something we find really difficult to do.
Yeah.
And so many people stay stuck in situations that aren't making them happy anymore because the fear of the unknown is greater than what's keeping them there, kind of thing. And so we just thought it felt like a very apt way to end our time together co-hosting the O for Food's Sake podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things, isn't it, where, and it's funny because actually the podcast started in a very similar way because I had let go of Pudology and I wanted to talk about the journey of that, the fallout of that, and, the emotional connection and, how that shaped me. And I think from an outsider's perspective, when people move on from something, it looks swift and it never is. There's always a long, backstory behind how to come to those realizations of, knowing that it's the right thing to do and being quite brave about having conversations because you have to have difficult conversations. It wasn't easy for me to say to tell Amy. I mean, we talked about it in another episode where I was like, I need to tell you something before I even sit down.
But it takes a long time to get to that realization, doesn't it? And I think people can stay in that cycle for a long time because if I think about the years before, so for me, it was the same for me when the podcast started. I was sort of 6 months out of my corporate career. I'd walked away from a stable job, all of that sort of stuff to go into the unknown. Like it was really scary times and people just see you coming out the other end, but they didn't see the 6 months or even longer that before that of like, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? Weighing up the pros and cons, doing this, that and the other. And actually the years before that had led to me to a point where I felt like I could make that leap. There was, I'd had to let go of a senior management position 10 years before that because of my health. I'd had to let go of a marriage that wasn't going well. And that, ultimately it wasn't my decision, but I had to then learn to let go of that. But all of that stuff, we wouldn't be where we are today if we'd held on to some of that stuff. And I mean, where would you be if you had kept trying to push through with Pudology? Because there was a point, wasn't there, in Pudology where you were just like, enough is enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's knowing, I think I've got a book actually called Knowing When to Quit or, something like that. And I think another really important point is that recognizing that quitting is quite a negative word,
Yeah.
but knowing when to quit and not associating it with failure, and
Mm.
recognizing that failure isn't the end, failure isn't fatal.
Mm.
We learn from the mistakes that we make. J.K. Rowling has a brilliant quote about failure where, someone who hasn't failed hasn't lived. Like
Yeah.
you have to fail to move forward. And, we're all on a journey, aren't we? And it's scary. I feel I'm really sad that this is our last episode. I'm scared about not doing it anymore because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
It's fun. I
Yeah.
love being with you. I love talking about this. I'm going to miss the things that we talk about and share with other people. But the other side of it is, at the end of last year, I was really, really ill. And I
Mm.
recognized that things needed to change. And
Yeah.
there are other things that I want to focus on. And I need to create some space to be able to do some other things that are more aligned with where I'm going and the direction I'm going in. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. And I'm saying that to convince myself it's okay. It's going to be all right. But it's scary.
And when we've talked about it as well, and I think, this is transferable to anybody in a situation where something, when we look back to 4 years ago, the joy and excitement and the
Yeah.
screenshots of downloads and all of that stuff, like that was so joyous. And then
Yeah.
it's become to a point where it's become monotonous isn't the right word, because we
No.
still love doing it, but it doesn't
Yeah.
light you up in the same way that it
Yeah.
had done.
Yeah.
And it's okay to admit that
Yeah.
we want to go in different directions, we want to
Yeah.
do different things, but it's almost like, because we wanted to do this episode about it being okay to let go, like that doesn't mean that we are not friends, it doesn't mean
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
don't, all of those things.
You can imagine if we were famous, it'd be like Amy and Lucy fall out,
Yeah. But actually, it's like when you hear about, like celebrities and stuff, and they're like conscious uncoupling or whatever. Actually, we've both grown as human beings and we've grown in different directions, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And we're still friends.
And we're still friends.
And actually, I think we'll be closer now because we've been really honest and made this break.
Yeah.
But I still want Amy to be on my journey with me
Yeah.
because she's been a massive part of, the growth in my business and who I am as a person and, vice versa.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it can be those things. I'm just thinking about what all people listening to this take from that for themselves. I think it's being able to be grown up enough
Yeah.
to go, do you know what? This was right. It's not right any longer. And I think so many people, because it's awkward and it's difficult to have that conversation or to know what's next, like when we first had the conversation and stuff, and I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, all of that sort of stuff going through. Actually, if you can reframe it all as opportunity, like, yes, okay, that's the fun bit. You letting go of certain things opens space and opportunity for new things. And I think we can get really focused on looking backwards and not looking forwards, because I was thinking about this when we were prepping the episode. There's things that I identify in my life that I still need to let go of, that still hold me back. So I still talk about my burnout quite a bit, and I do that because it's useful to other people. But sometimes always going over that in the past, it brings it still into the present for me. And actually, I'm a different person. I'm not going to burn out again in that same way because I've learned so much. But there is a part of my subconscious that still doesn't let me do exercise, that still is constantly worrying about my energy levels and can I go hell for leather in my business because am I going to burn out? And actually, so there's things like that. So if you're listening, this isn't necessarily just about letting go of like a job or relationship or a friendship that's no longer serving you. It's letting go of some of the thoughts inside your head that are holding you back.
Yeah, definitely. I think a big part of it is the internal conversations and like the decisions that you make and the things that hold you back in your mind, that's the biggest part. Like
Yeah.
the actually doing it, that happens. It's the psychological effects that are the hardest to reconcile.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to physically make the change. And
Yeah.
that's why it can take years and therapy and stuff like that to get over like a relationship breakup or whatever,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not as easy as I'm not going to be living in the same house as that person. It's like
Yeah.
all the baggage that you then make that about,
Yeah.
you
But
know?
I also think this is where people can look at successful people or people that are doing things that they revere and think, oh, they're lucky or they're so brave that they did this. But there's a lot that goes on behind it. Like you do have to take the leap of faith. And if you're thinking, I want to do something. So I've wanted to do stuff on YouTube for a while. And, you can sit there for ages and go, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to, but you've got to
Mm.
actually do it.
Yeah.
You've got to do it. You've got to create. You've got to find the space and got to find the time to do the things that you want to do.
You've just got to start, and you've got to start doing the things. It's like the conversation that we had with Ramona about actually it's the little things and just getting on with it that makes the difference.
Yeah.
And it starts to help you be able to let go of the other things. And we had that conversation, didn't we? Before you said like, you'd come up with a idea and I was like, it doesn't really relate to a podcast. That's a YouTube. Start a YouTube channel, Lucy. Like it was the push. It was that final push of like, okay, I need to do this. But I think another reason people don't let go of stuff and they stay stuck is because they change and they don't realise that they've changed. Because we do change and evolve as we go through our lives. And so I think that self-awareness bit is really important. And I know in the whole final decision about stepping away from the podcast for you, there was that I'd sent you your human design, hadn't I? And that showed you like the insights that gave you. Whether you believe in astrology and human design and stuff like that, it doesn't really matter, because what it did was helped you tune into your intuition and go, do you know what? My human design is generator, therefore.
Yeah. But it can also just be like the language around that. So that's a really interesting point, because in the human design, it was talking about, things that align with the type of person that you are. And that got me thinking about, what is aligning, and really reflecting on, what happened to me at the end of the year? Like, why did I? Because I'd had such a good year and I'd enjoyed, and that's the problem. Like when you're enjoying everything that you're doing, it's really difficult to then start to pinpoint what could change, what could be sacrificed to open up some space for some new opportunities and new things to happen. Because you do, in this busy world that we live in, you do have to open up space to
we've only got
new
a
things in.
finite amount of time and energy. That's the thing. And it's not like sometimes the things that you have to let go of, it isn't because you don't love doing them, or it's just because you have to prioritize in life, right? All right, folks, we're going to take a quick breather here to hear from our fantastic sponsors. They help keep the podcast going, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. As we all know, the food industry never stands still, and it's not getting any easier. More pressure, tighter deadlines, and endless spreadsheets. Sound familiar? Point 74 is the perfect solution for cutting through today's product development challenges, enabling teams to create, cost, comply, and collaborate with ease. Used by 1 in 5 of the UK's top food manufacturers and 2 of the top 5 retailers, it's the software behind the label of your favourite food products, delivering improved quality, margins, and processes, all in one seamless system.
Ensuring food safety and quality is crucial. That's why businesses trust Microsearch Laboratories, part of the IFP Labs Group. UCAS accredited Microsearch offers microbiological, nutritional, and allergen testing for food, drink, and water, delivering fast results and expert support. With over 30 years of experience, trusted by leading manufacturers and retailers, and a commitment to sustainability, Microsearch is your partner in product safety. Visit micro-search.co.uk to learn more.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's dive right back in.
And also the things, Pudology is a great example of this, where, when I was in the thick of it, oh God, it was so hard. And now when I let it go, and now nearly 6 years on, I can't believe it's been 6 years. The only thing I remember are the good things. The
Yeah.
only thing I think about is what it gave me, the good stuff that
Yeah.
it gave me.
But you didn't to start with. That's you. That's
No,
been
no, that's
a
a journey.
process,
That's a
right? Yeah.
journey. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of recognizing when to let go
Mm.
and the result that you can get at the end of it. You can look back and be like, wow, look what I did. Look what I achieved. Look at the brilliant thing that look at the relationship that it gave me with my family. And,
Yeah.
my kids still talk about it, even though they were, I mean, Monty was born, but so it's that ability, it lets you leave something behind
Mm.
and not live in this state of resentment and sadness,
Yeah.
which is where
Yeah.
I would have been if I'd have carried
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And I feel exactly the same about if I had stayed in corporate. Like, I wasn't deeply unhappy, but I was just a bit meh. And I talked about, haven't I? Like, if I'd had to
Yeah.
do another Valentine's category review, I would
Yeah.
have wanted to
Yes.
shoot
Yes.
myself. And that's no shade on people that enjoy doing that and thrive on doing that. But what it felt to me, because I worked in corporate and I worked in an like more of an SME, not like, and I think
Yeah.
I had a bit more creativity in that role, although I then burnt out because it was almost like I had too much free rein, and that meant I did everything. But then going back into an environment where everything was done on a template, you couldn't veer from the template. You had to use these systems, this, that, and the other. I worked out that didn't serve me. That wasn't who I was, So my human design is projector. So I'm all about putting ideas out there and, using my voice and all of that. And I wasn't able to do that. And I wasn't able to use the creative side. So by letting go of that corporate life, it's given me my creativity back that I'd lost. It was a part of me that just I felt had gone. And I had got so stuck into like basically doing cat reviews pretty much all the time or whatever, that I'd forgotten that actually people is at the heart of what I'd enjoyed. So the years that I spent in MPD when I managed more people, I loved that bit of it. And I wasn't doing that anymore. But actually now I get to help people on a daily basis. I help to affect change in culture in businesses. And I just do what I want to do on a daily basis. Like, don't get me wrong, there's things that I do that I don't want to have to do. Like, that happens
But
at
you've
work.
created the space to be able to.
But if I hadn't been brave enough to walk away from my corporate career, I wouldn't have had that.
But I think it is that it's developing the ability to recognize when it's time to let go. And even though you and I have done it like a lot, it's still not easy, and this goes back to those things that we talk about looking at your inner circle, who are the people that you trust, that you can talk to about these things, because when you say things out loud, it feels and sounds differently, and you need to sort of really recognize how you're feeling about something. So who are those people that you can talk to about it?
But I think it's also about using those people to identify that stuff, because we have our own blind spots, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So even just be, somebody being, I don't know if this happened to you, Lucy, but somebody else being able to say to you, actually, you're putting all of this. Well, I think there was people that had said stuff to you about the podcast, and you were like, actually, is this, am I just doing this because I've always done it?
Because I'm in a rhythm
actually,
now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to let Amy down, and I don't want to, what if this, because when you do something, when you've been in a job for a long time, or you're doing something like the podcast that you've been doing for a long time, you get into a routine. So then it's really difficult to start a routine and develop habits. It's really difficult to then think of a world where that doesn't feature.
Yeah, well, it's the hamster wheel, isn't it? It's the hamster wheel of life. And it's like, actually, step back. Is this still serving me? Is this...
Yeah.
And we've even, as a family, as a household, with that whole hamster wheel, we have moments now where we step back and go, is the way we're doing this? Like, since Barry started a new job last year, and it's, he's away more and stuff like that. Like, we've had to change the systems. We've had to let go of expectations of certain things and change them, but actually slowing down enough to take the time to think, is this system we've got put in place, or is this part of how we do things, is that still serving us?
Yeah. And there's this thing about, what are you doing out of fear? So what would you do if you weren't scared? So if you've had a thought and you dismiss it quickly because you're like, well, I can't possibly do that because I might lose my job. Or one of my things is I've got to carry on doing the podcast, because what if all my clients' success is linked to the podcast? Like, and then when you start to say things like that out loud, or you really think about what you're saying or what the fear really is, you start to see whether it's an irrational
actually
fear.
true.
And whether actually you're using it as an excuse to hold you back.
It's one of my favorite coaching questions in this sort of situation is, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? Because usually everybody's fear is failure and looking stupid and looking bad in front of other people. And it's, that's part of our DNA. It's, I talk about it all the time. We're pack animals. We want other people we need to fit in with other people. But actually, I think it comes down to, we've got one life, right? And I think we're starting to turn into those middle-aged women saying it, aren't we? But I think it is, you sort of start to realise a little bit more that there's one life, and on your deathbed, are you going to be worrying about what those people on LinkedIn thought about you and the fact that you job hopped twice? Or are you going to be thinking about the opportunities that you didn't take that you could have done? People rarely regret what they've done. A lot of the regrets are, I wish I'd, worked less or taken that risk. We don't sit on our deathbed going, well, I wish I'd, not taken any risks and
that's so
stayed
true.
safe my whole life.
And it's not, because we've done episodes before on redundancy where you're sort of forced into a situation and then new things happen. It's a different thing when you're making those decisions yourself and putting yourself into a scary situation, but you've got to believe that good things will happen, and you're doing it for the right reasons.
Because often, like with redundancy and stuff, you hear people say, it was the push that I needed to make the change. And actually, it's a bigger and braver thing to make that push yourself and do it yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So letting go is not all about endings. It's about creating new opportunities, right? For the start of bigger and better and different things.
Exactly.
Like Lucy's YouTube channel and my rebranded podcast that will be coming out later this year, that sort of thing.
Yes, exactly. And thank you to our amazing listeners for listening to us over the last 4 years and coming to the events that we've held. I'm sure Amy will still be holding events because she was the events queen. And please check out my YouTube channel, Lucy Wager MPD. Obviously, we're still all on LinkedIn. All of us.
Yes.
All of us, me and Amy. There aren't any more.
But also come and tell us what it is you're going to go and let go of as well.
Yes.
Which I know one of the things is that you're being forced to let go of is listening to the Over Food's Sake podcast.
It's going to open up so many other listening opportunities for you. Think of that opportunity.
and an opportunity to watch Lucy on her YouTube channel, come back and listen to me in the autumn on the new podcast that will still be on this channel. So don't go anywhere. But yes, thank you. Well, thank you to you, Lucy.
Yes.
I would never ever have dreamed of starting a podcast on my own. And it's been such a joy and such a pleasure to do it with my work bestie for all these years. And who'd have thunk it when we were making dips back in 20 years ago.
And I still can't, an incredible achievement that we've done this for 4 years.
Longest job either of us have ever had.
It literally is, apart from Pudology, which doesn't really count. But it is. I'm so proud of what we've done. And thank you for being my co-host. And I'm so pleased that you're going to carry it on in a different guise, because you're brilliant at giving advice and inspiring people to live their lives in a way that brings them joy. And doing this podcast and creating this content with you has really shaped who I am in my business. And I wouldn't have been able to make this decision if we hadn't have gone through all of the stuff that we have, ironically. So it's been an absolute joy and one of the greatest things that I feel like I'm going to leave behind when I retire. And I'm so proud that my kids can say that I did a podcast, and it's just lovely. So thank you for helping me create the brilliant thing that is Over Food's Sake.
Oh, and yes, thank you to you, and feel the love, everybody. And thank you to all of our listeners, because we honestly didn't think anybody was going to listen. And like you say, when in that first week when we had 45 downloads, we were like, oh my God, 45 people have listened. And now we're like, I don't even know where we're at. I haven't looked at the stats for at least 65,000 times we've been listened to. So that's insane. So thank you. If you are not already on our email list, make sure you get yourself on our email list. The link's in the show notes, because we will be sending out emails to let you know what's going to happen with the podcast next. I might ask you some questions about what you want to hear, and you will also get links to all the amazing work Lucy is doing as well. So do come and join us there. And we'll see you. I'll see you in September. And Lucy,
I'll see you on YouTube.
Yeah. See you soon, everyone.
See you soon. Bye. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, rate and review us. It really helps us reach more food industry pros like you.
For more resources, head over to our website, overfoodsake.co.uk, and join our mailing list to stay in touch.
And if you'd like to connect with us, come say hello on LinkedIn. We're both there, Lucy Wager and Amy Wilkinson.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.